Hey everyone, it's Colin from DIY Guy. In today's video, we're building a seedling tray out of an old pallet. So if you watched my garden winterization video, at the very end of that, I told you a story about how I pulled over on the side of the road and found a pallet on the highway. And this is that same pallet, so we're finally putting it to good use. So if you've ever tried to use pallet wood, you'll know that the worst part of using pallet wood is taking the pallet apart. So I know they make like pallet rippers that are these giant crowbars that rip all the nails out really easily. I don't have one of those, and I don't have enough pallets to warrant buying one, and I've had some bad experiences with just using a hammer and a crowbar. Usually if I use a hammer and a crowbar, half of the wood breaks just because it's just really dry pine or something, and I don't want to waste a lot of the wood just from breaking it with this. So instead of using a hammer and a crowbar, I decided to use this, I think it's a sonic saw, a Dremel Multimax MM40 tool. So this tool, get up a little closer so you can see it, but this tool just vibrates. It's got this blade on it, and this one is a metal cutting blade, and it just vibrates back and forth really quickly. It's not circular or anything, it just vibrates back and forth. And I actually slid this between the boards on the pallet, and I cut all the nails off. I cut all the heads of the nails, and after I did that, then the boards just lifted right up. And then I was able to go back through with a hammer and a nail and knock the heads out of the wood. So all these boards have no nails in them anymore, and it took a little longer, but it saved a lot of my wood. You know, I didn't have that 50% loss from cracking or breaking. I do have some scraps here, but it was just a rough pallet. So good news, most of the pallets survived. So when I came to designing the pallet tray that I wanted, I found an idea online that was pretty smart. So instead of having a bunch of same size trays that are just stacked, I found this nesting idea on the internet. And so the first one is the largest. This is going to be the 26 by 18 inch, then it'll be 24 by 16, and then 22 by 14. And so the idea is that 3 of them will be able to kind of nest inside each other to save some space. Since I don't have a huge garden, I don't need all these seedling trays. I'll be able to just use the same one each time I need it. And so I'm only going to make the 24 by 16, and I'll make the smaller and larger one when I need them. So let's get into it. So before I get started, I just wanted to show you the pallet wood I've got. So these are the scraps. They're kind of broken pieces or the bigger supports that I'm not going to use right now. And this is the good wood that I'm going to be using. The 2 on the right are going to be my walls. Those are they're about 40 inches long. All these are about 40 inches long, and then the rest I'll be using for the bottom. And then over here I just have some 2-inch deck screws that I'll be using. I had them on hand. They're a little overkill, 2 inches, but it's all I had, and I don't want to run to the store because it's snowy out and they don't clear the roads here. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut all my boards to length. I said I'm going to do a 16 by 24, and so the first thing I need to do is build the walls. So these are each almost 40 inches. This isn't going to be perfect 16 by 24, but you know, it's just pallet wood, so it's not a big deal. Alright, so I made the first mistake already. The first 2 that I cut are 16s, and I cut them from the same board, which what I should have done is cut a 16 and a 24 from each board. That way their total length is 40 inches. And I could have done it both with 2. But now I'm gonna have to cut another one because I've got 2 16s, but I can't get 2 24s out of a 40 length board. So I've got to cut another 24. So there we have it. We got 2 16s and 2 24s. So now the next thing I've got to do is cut the bottom boards, and this should be pretty simple. They're just they're already about 16 inches wide, the 4 of those, and so now I just need to cut them all 24 inches length. So this one's actually got a couple nails in there that I couldn't get out. They're stuck in there good, so I'm just going to cut that end off. Then we'll go ahead and measure 24. Alright, so here we've got the walls, here we've got the bottom, and it's going to go together just like this. And right now I'm realizing that I made a second mistake already. and I did not account for the width of the board. So the whole width of the bottom is 16, but if I subtract the 1/2 inch from each side, this actually needs to be about 15 instead of 16. So I need to recut these 2 walls. Turns out I could have gotten the whole perimeter with just 2 boards if I had thought ahead. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut these 2 16 inches down to 15. It's actually kind of hard to make a video and do a woodworking project. I'm not very practiced in it. All right, let's try that again now that we've got the right dimensions for these. So these are gonna go down the sides. That's gonna be just like that. All right, so it's not 100% perfect. This is actually overhanging a little bit on this last wall, but I'll just make up the difference by adding some gaps between the boards. I just have like a 1/4 inch to make up. Now I'm gonna go ahead and assemble the walls. So this is gonna be kind of tricky just to get them square and everything. So when it comes to working with pallet wood, pilot holes are gonna be your friend. It doesn't have to be a super sharp bit just because it's really soft wood, generally. But if you don't use a pilot hole, chances are your wood's gonna split once you screw into it. And also, pilot holes are gonna help you get a better square. Unfortunately, I don't have any fancy wood clamps for this, so I'm gonna try to just do it like this and hopefully it doesn't slip. Ooh, that is a dull bit. You can see it smoking. I'll have to swap that one out. I'm gonna go ahead and get these screws started before I line them up with the holes. So if you get them to stick out just a little bit, you can line them up with your holes easier. All right, so far so good. All right, since this wood's soft, I'm just gonna stick with my same janky bit. And this board actually already has holes where the nails were on the sidewall, on this top piece. So I'm just gonna use those same holes and drill pilot holes down into the next piece of board. Actually, no, I'm not, because they are just a little bit too deep. All right, looking pretty good. 3 walls down. 1 more to go. So with this last wall, since it's just a 1/4 inch wider than the other ones, I'm just gonna make sure that I keep the same side flush on both, otherwise it'll be wobbly. So I'm gonna make this side my flush side, and this side will be a little bit uneven. Those pilot holes are a beautiful thing. This would be a lot harder without them. There's also nothing special about the screws I'm using. They're just deck screws. If I would have had 1.5 or 2 inch drywall screws, I would have used those as well. All right, there we go. Not bad, not bad. That is nice and square, or rectangle. Now, this is the bottom. So we're gonna go ahead and screw these bad boys on. Wow, I need a new set of drill bits, that's for sure. I'm gonna go ahead and lock down a couple of these screws just so the board doesn't move as I drill the rest of the pilot holes. As you drill these pilot holes for the bottom pieces, you have to make sure that you're not gonna hit the screws that you drilled in to fasten your sidewalls together. Also, since these aren't gonna be used for like a lot of heavy lifting, you probably don't need more than just a couple of screws in each board. Yeah, about 5 screws in here, 5 or 6. All right, first board's on. Now I'm gonna actually do the other end board. That way I can split the difference in the gaps between these two. That way it looks nicer. All right, both the ends are on. So now you can see that there is some gaps in here. There are some gaps in here. So I am gonna just try to split the difference on those and make them look nice. That way it's not like that. That would look pretty bad. I just tried to put the screw in the drill. All right, there we have it. There is our pallet box, our seedling tray. It's actually still pretty heavy. Like, even though it's so small, if you go much bigger than this, you're gonna want handles. And I think I might actually even put just a couple strips of wood, one strip here and one over here, just to give me something to grab onto. So what I'm gonna take this, I'm just gonna rip it in half and then screw I'm gonna screw half of it to each end like this, and then it'll just give me a little something to hold on to. There we go, there's our two pieces, and I don't want to use 2-inch screws because if I use 2-inch screws, it's gonna poke out about a 1/2 inch, and I don't wanna stab myself. And so I have these are just tile backer board screws. They'll do the job for what we're using it for. And it just so happens I have 6 of them, so that looks perfect. Now, I'm not gonna drill pilot holes for this one, so we'll see what happens. Well, that's what happens. It went ahead and split right down the middle. So I've gotta make another one of these. All right, let's try round 2. We've got 2 more. This time we're gonna use pilot holes. All right, there's one down. Pilot holes worked really well. All right, there's the finished product. It is really sturdy. You could carry lead bricks around in this and it would hold up just fine. Probably weighs about 7 pounds, which is, kind of heavy, especially if you think about filling it up with dirt. It's gonna get to 15 pounds pretty quickly. So these handles, I definitely recommend putting those on. I just had to put a couple screws in to hold them on, but I'll give you the close-up of it. So everything is really pretty square. I'm very happy with how the edges turned out. Everything's nice and flush. Those pilot holes were a lifesaver for just making sure that it doesn't kink or spin or anything on you. There are some gaps in here, so if you fill it up with dirt, you might get a little bit of leaking, so I wouldn't carry it around your house on your carpet or anything. But for outside, this is perfect. So the best part of this project is that it was free. I just found a pallet on the side of the road. You can probably find them on Facebook Marketplace or something for $1 or $2, and then you probably have the screws lying around for it anyway. It'll save you a few bucks instead of going to Home Depot, and it's kind of fun to just do a DIY project. So the biggest I would go is, maybe a couple inches each direction compared to this. So maybe like a 18 by 26 or, maybe 20 by 30 or something. But I wouldn't go much bigger because at that point you're gonna be kind of like way out here. And when you start lugging 20 or 30 pounds of seedlings around out to your garden, it's not gonna be very fun. But then if you want to, you can make one smaller that fits inside this, which I'll probably do someday when I need another seedling tray, but this should be able to satisfy all my seedling needs for a little while. Well, with that, I hope your day is awesome and keep getting ready to grow it yourself.